I am once again going to fangirl about this show because this episode was just so good. So much happened in it. I was in it completely focused the whole time. I watched it twice. Holy moly. First, Day's goddamn visions slash hallucinations slash memories. The fact that Demerzel is not present in the present timeline of the show, is just present in memories, and it's still such a big, important presence for this story. The fact that we learn about a little bit more about the freedom discussion of her programming, the fact that she's not there and the discussion still goes on. Amazing. The whole backstory of the mule and this idea that which parts of it are true and which parts are not. I'm going to talk about it because I feel like I know. Um, and then the whole thing in New Terminus with Torin was so heartbreaking, and Beta and Preach Jesus. Like when he was doing that, I was like, but wow, what an episode. I really loved it. If you're coming here to hate on it, go ahead and comment and you'll see what I say. And let's go ahead with the discussion of the episode. My name is Joe, I didn't say it. Welcome back to the channel of Delusional Theories. I will have theories, but they're not delusional. And I'm sorry if I sound a little ill, but I'm actually eating my melon. So, the mule was born on a farm planet to a family that lives on this planet controlled by the Foundation, and they live on the one child policy. We see the whole shenanigans with him being the firstborn, but not the lastborn. And I know the discussion is going to be, oh, how funny that the Foundation or the ones who created the mule by creating these circumstances where his parents would have to abuse him or discard of him or whatever whatever it can be said about it. But that's not true. It's not true, because any other child or a lot of other children in a similar situation where they are faced with the possibility of death and their powers awaken, or they are forced to use their powers or whatever, and kill one of their parents, they wouldn't do it to the other. They wouldn't do it to the other. They would feel extremely guilty for the rest of their lives. But the fact that he not only is able to do it to one parent after this crisis situation when he almost dies, but he can do it and does it to the other parent is really telling of who he is as a person. Because I feel like the mule pursuing the second foundation and pursuing Gaal and trying to find other people like him, because we have the hint when he's at the club in the beginning of the season that Preach is the first person like him, the first mentalic that he meets this whole goddamn time. And in my mind, there's this idea that the mule is trying to find a second foundation and trying to find Gaal because he's trying to find people like him. I mean, I know that he says that he has an appetite for a whole galaxy, and that's why he's taking the galaxy. And I know that there is probably someone behind him, either controlling him or feeding him information or whatever. The preordained little thing, we'll talk about it. But to me, it feels like he wants to find people like him. Like, he wants to find people with his abilities, with his desires, with his rage, and he won't find it in the second foundation, because even though they are all mentalics like him, they're not all psychopaths. Like, Mule, darling, no. Like, no, the second foundation doesn't want to take over the galaxy and rule over everyone. You do. So you will not find people like you there. You will find people like you in the Empire, maybe. We'll talk about Dusk. But we also see more about his powers. This thing that he does to people, that he makes them utterly and completely happy to be doing what they're doing. I know this has been explored in previous episodes, but this episode was like they hammered it in. His parents were happy to be drowning. The dude from the Foundation was happy to be drowning. And even with, oh my god, what's his name? Torin's uncle. I will talk about it in a second, but even with him, it was this idea of pure peace and happiness. And the fact that the mule the way that he manipulates people is by making them completely content, utterly happy to be doing whatever it is that they're doing, even if it's completely illogical. It's so goddamn smart, but you kind of have to wonder. It makes me think, how is it possible that a person like the Mule, that is capable of murdering his parents, how does he have the understanding that people will follow him a lot easier if they feel content and happy to do so than they will if they fear him? Like, how does he have this understanding in his mind that to control people, he has to make them happy to follow? How is it in his mind? Because he doesn't seem to have that kind of understanding about people. And to me, it's just another indication that he is being controlled, that he is being influenced by someone else. Like, when the whole Torin thing was happening and the guy was telling him, his uncle was telling him, you just feel really happy, that was so heartbreaking. Like, I will get to it. I wanted to cry watching that. There's something that Torin says to him that was like, oh. But the last thing about the Mule and his home planet, that baby has to come up. That baby has to come back at some point. And I mean, immediately, as soon as I saw what he did to the baby, and like, he was reluctant to leaving him there. He left him the little sweet as well. Like, that was caring behavior. And I mean, to me, this kind of explains why he keeps the child around, why he has made the child into his pet. On one hand, it does explain it. It does make sense that if he had that little kid in his life, that baby, potentially a baby sister in his life, that he truly loved and wanted to take care of and found the best possible solution for after he murdered their parents. I mean, honestly, they tried to do it to him before, so isn't it so terrifying, the idea that the most horrendous people on the planet were once children? But yeah, this idea that he keeps the kid around as sort of a replacement for the baby sister that he had to give away. But on the other hand, it also shows his lack of understanding of relationships, because that isn't a relationship. He's mentally controlling her. That isn't a person. That isn't even a pet. That is literally just a puppet. Another thing that I noticed were the voices in his head, right? Because he says the whole thing. These things are preordained. The idea that everyone was expecting him to go for the Empire first. That was the plan that Gaal had. He is going for the Empire first. That's why the Empire needs to be weak, so that he can take the Empire, and then Foundation unites to take the Mule down. He did something that no one was expecting. And he did it perfectly, because then when he went to New Terminus, when he took the Foundation first, Preach, the person that could potentially give him access to the second Foundation into Gaal, was right there. How convenient was that? So when he says these things are preordained, it hammers on the point that there's someone telling him something. And I mean, I heard the voices in his head when it sounded like voices to me. Did I imagine it? Let me know in the comments. But it sounded like voices when he was, drowning his parents. And I'm thinking, is it preordained? Is there someone controlling him? Is there someone behind him? Or is he just having hallucinations? Is he just hallucinating voices and like a greater entity that is telling him how to do things? But in fact, it's just hallucinations that he has, voices that he hears that are not there. Because he's a smart person and he has the capacity to manipulate almost anyone. I'll talk about it in a second. Couldn't it just have been him? Because we discussed this last episode that Gaal and the Mule are the outliers. They are the variables that don't fit into the system, that don't fit into the plan and can go AWire. And he just did. He went AWire. Isn't it understandable that he did it on himself, even if he believes that there is someone out there looking out for him, even if he believes that there's a huge plan to put him in charge in the galaxy? Isn't it possible that it's just him and his hallucinations against the world? Because that's what I was thinking in this episode. Like, why do I hear voices? Why And does he hear them as well? And does he think they are something they are not? I mean, I still think it's very possible that there's someone controlling him. I don't know the source material, what happened. But things are very convenient for him. The things keep going his way, like, so easily, so quickly. So I can totally understand if there are people behind him, or a person behind him, or an entity behind him controlling what he does, or like even giving him these voices, or whatever. But a little tiny part of me is starting to think that maybe he's just hallucinating all of it, and it's just all his plans. Even if it thinks it comes from somewhere outside, it's just coming from inside his head. That was a good one. I'm gonna keep that one in. But my question during this episode was also because I was thinking, oh, is the mayor like voluntarily doing this for him? No, he has to be controlled. But is he controlled? When did he control him? And then we have the scene in the bathroom, and it's very clear that he is controlled, and the others are potentially not as controlled because they seem very shocked. I don't know that I completely understand it, but when did that happen? Did they meet before? Like, did the mayor accept to meet the mule, and then, like, because he's very naive idiot and he accepted to meet the mule, and then he just controlled him from then, and we never saw it? Did I miss something? Anyway, I was confused by that. And then another thing that got me a little bit by surprise was when the mule said citizen 1, or the first citizen, or something like that, and then the little girl asked, citizen of what? Citizen number 1 of what? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see how this turns out. And it's like, if it is, like, if there is someone influencing him, he doesn't know anything about it apart from the fact that it's planned. You know, it's all planned. It's all preordained. It's like, but at the same time, it feels like he's just joking. It feels like he knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly, like, what the outcome is going to be. And he's just joking. Just being like, oh, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I know, but I'm not going to tell you. Like, doesn't it feel like that? But anyway, that was kind of the side of the mule. It was like at the end when he met with Harry, and he was like, this was all your fault, something like that. When he said such a hard-hitting line, like, the pirates never took as much as the Foundation did, as much as you did, and then Harry appears to him. I cannot wait to watch that conversation, because I mean, the mule surely is justifying all of this with the existence of the Foundation. The Foundation were the evil people that made his parents want to kill him. And I mean, it sure adds an argument to this idea of, can any organization, any nation, empire, whatever the hell it is, ever be good? Like, can anything be big, huge, gigantic, and be good and not create inequality? Because the Foundation was created to fight this 30,000-year dark age. And then here they are being ruled by an idiot and doing things like the stuff they're doing on the planet with the mule's parents, with the one-child policy and whatever. I mean, can any organization or any sort of power ever remain good and fair and equal as they grow? Many philosophical, kind of political, social discussions happen in this episode. My favorite is with the conversation between Torin and his uncle. That was my favorite scene. That and Day's visions or hallucinations. I watched this episode twice. I almost watched it a third time today because it was just that good. I usually don't have a good radar on what everyone else thinks it's good. Usually it's just me against the world. So let's see what everyone else thinks about this episode. But yeah, let's talk about Beta and Torin. I was in pain. I was in pain because he fought so hard for her. Like, he dragged her through the whole goddamn battlefield. He dragged her through the battlefield, and she's so hurt. Like, as soon as he puts her on the med bay, whatever the hell that thing is called, the little computer on the ship says immediately, like, yeah, she's not doing good. And then they take her to the Mule's rule, and you know she's going to be in bad shape because she was the one who took Magnifico. And where was Magnifico? Like, when they were struggling in the ship, and then the uncle appeared, and then the Mule's people appeared, the whole time I was thinking, Magnifico, where are you? Come save them with your music, hypnotize them with your music, and and we can only hope he's hiding and safe somewhere. I mean, Torin is going to be up there with Preach, so they eventually will meet up with Gaal in the Second Foundation, and they will retake the planet, hopefully. But heartbreaking. The scene when his uncle appears on the ship, and his demeanor and the way he's carrying himself, the way he's talking to Torin is just so obvious from the beginning. Like, the moment he appeared, the moment he on the spaceship, it was so obvious that he was controlled. I mean, to us it was incredibly obvious. I'm sure to Torin it wasn't, because he was just trying to save Beta's life, like his beloved, and it was so obvious from the beginning. And then they had that conversation about, like, the uncle saying he isn't here to hurt us. He's here to destroy the ones in power. He's here to save us. And him describing this beautiful, utter feeling of love and peace, and just the struggle of Torin having to hear this from his uncle. And he said it, like, because his uncle started saying, you fought so hard, you made it all the way here with Beta, you did this and you did that. And Torin saying, yeah, I've been wanting to hear this my whole life. I wanted you to say these things to me. And even as he says it, he knows it's not true. He knows it's not real. He knows it's not his uncle's words. It's the Mule's words. That scene was so completely heartbreaking. And the fact that his uncle still loved him, still wanted him by his side, and he didn't turn against his nephew. He was trying to get him to his side. The manipulation the Mule uses is so good, to this extent that the people who are manipulated don't hate the people who aren't. They just want to bring them in. And the deal that the uncle was making to Torin, this idea that if you destroy the universe for the Mule, you'll get everything you want, was so amazing to watch. Because, I mean, isn't that what it is? Isn't that what's happening with the idea that authoritarian leaders can convince any common person that if you destroy the world for them, then you can get everything you want at the end from a destroyed, ruined world? The idea that they can get so into your head that they convince you of these completely illogical things, and you blindly follow them and feel this feeling of belonging, of love, of acceptance, and it's just so good. The fact that this show is targeted, or is like targeting an audience of male viewers, and this whole thing is just gonna go right over the majority of their heads, is killing me. It's killing me, because this is what they're saying, right? This is what they're saying. Here's an authoritarian leader. Here is a man who has absolutely no desire to understand people, or to listen to people, or to coexist with people. He only wants to overpower them, to manipulate them, to control them. And then he convinces everyone around him that he is the savior of mankind, that he is the savior of the universe, and that if you destroy the universe for him, you can get everything you want in life. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. But you know what I found really interesting as well is the fact that he can't manipulate everyone. Torin, even though the uncle was saying all the right things, Torin knew it wasn't real. because he's a strong-hearted, strong-minded person. So as soon as he saw his escape, he went for it. And I mean, he will come back because he's not going to leave Beta there for sure. And then we also have the other dude. When the mayor was kneeling for the mule, there was this dude like, no, what are you doing? Shoot him in the head. And I mean, surely the mule tried to control him and tried to subdue him, and maybe he couldn't. And I don't know if that's what happened, if the mule just made it a show to show people that if anyone opposes him, they will be killed or something. But I hope it is that he couldn't control his mind, because it just gives us little bit of hope that the mule can't control everyone. And I mean, we talked about this before in previous episodes where he describes his ability and he's like, some minds are more malleable than others. And this idea that some people will be too strong for him to control, to me, is a little bit of hope of how they could defeat him in the future. If they even want to defeat him. I've talked about this before. Now about Dusk and the Foundation ambassador. At first, I thought the ambassador was working for the mule, probably, and was like infiltrating the Empire. But then we had the whole scenes of them together and them in bed and whatever. And I started at the end when I looked away. When Dusk did that to the little ferret, I looked away. What the hell? And I started feeling like, Dusk? Is Dusk under the control of the mule? But surely not. Because where is he going if not for the black hole weapon, right? And I mean, it's coming up. He's, what do you call it? Ascending. These ascendants. The ascending day is coming in 3 days. And we will see it. We've seen it in the trailer, I think. And I mean, they will be back by then because maybe the microgen people are going to be plotting the takeover of the palace to free Demerzel. I will get to it. That was such a great part of the episode. But my thing about Dusk as well that I noticed is so cool because we have those memories of Day's childhood and we see how clear it is that he is falling behind, that the DNA is being damaged, that the Cleons are no longer those perfect clones. And when I do the thing of the little napkin on a table, the way that the current Dusk, the previous Day, looked at him like, you inferior being, you can't even get a napkin, like something like that. He was looking at him like, oh, I see the ending of the dynasty. I see it happening. So I don't know. I feel like this Cleon, like Brother Dusk, might be the last proper Cleon, and maybe he knows that. Because, I mean, the current Dawn was manipulated by Gaal pretty easily and is now potentially gone. The current Day is where he is, and we will get to him. So it truly feels like Dusk is the last proper Cleon in the dynasty, and who knows, maybe even the last one. So, I don't know, I feel like he feels it. And I feel like he's gonna try to scramble everything that he can to save Empire. Because that's the thing, like, even though Day has this affinity for the animals, and even though Dawn created this affinity for Gaal, or believed her, or trust her, Dusk seems completely unperturbed by all that stuff. And even though it appears like he's affectionate towards the ambassador, I don't know, that could be just fake. I think he must be heading for the gun, for the black hole gun. He must have plans or be preparing something. Maybe on the day of the ascension, he won't go into the light, or I don't know, the little ray that turns him to dust. And he will just want to remain in power. I mean, the ambassador even says that. So, and the whole thing with his fear of, dying and passing on, whatever, I feel like his current plan is to remain in power. And currently, he is the only one who is steering the ship in any way, because even Demerzel is gone, traveling whatever the hell she is at the moment. So I feel like this is where it's going. It's like one of the Cleons grabbing onto the power, and that's going to be like the last straw that takes them down. Anyway, can't wait for the next episode. This one is so good. I will not shut up about it. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be people criticizing many things. Not me though. I wrote a whole page for day. Look at this. Let's talk about it. So much happened. I didn't understand half of it as it was happening. And then in my second watch, I was like, okay, I noticed this, I noticed this, I noticed this. So let's talk about it. First of all, the tools with the markings from Earth. Great to be mentioned in a sci-fi show. And the thing was so trippy. It was so trippy. The fact that children in microgen like drink that normally, and then he is an adult, and because he was never exposed to this kind of drug, it just freaks him out. Interesting. Makes you think that the children of the microgen little part of Trento are really tough cookies, but also why are giving an hallucinogenic to children, lady? But in this hallucination, trippy ass memory, trip down memory lane, we get the hardest hitting line of the episode, and we get yet another little step in the staircase of Demerzel's debate of whether or not she'll be anything after the Cleons. And the sentence is, when they are having that little memory of him in bed discussing her love for them and her freedom and what she would do if she didn't have them and all that stuff. And she says, I cannot weigh love against freedom. And then they finishes the sentence because freedom would win. What a line. What a line. And I mean, then we have the little memory because they is like running through the palace rooms trying to search for this memory. And then he reaches there, he gets there to the mirror where he saw Demerzel, and we see a Demerzel covered in dust / ash, whatever the hell that is. It gives like this impression of after all the Cleons are gone, after the Empire is gone, she will still be there, stuck to it, because that's what her programming dictates. And she will be there, sitting in her chair, just covered in dust, completely immobile, just looking on at the memories of the past when she had meaning, when her programming had a way or a place to be applied. And it broke me. Looking at her dusty like that broke me. And the memory she's looking onto, and she's looking at in the mirror is this memory of her talking to a young Day when he was Dawn, and him saying like, they didn't do well that day because they don't look all the same, and this idea that he cries when he gets hurt. And then she says, no, you also cry when you're sad. And he realizes that she's crying because she's sad. And this idea that she's sad because she's seeing her only purpose for living, literally dying, slowly dying in front of her. And she completely unable to do anything about it because when they are gone, she'll have no purpose to exist. And she will just remain immobile somewhere as a robot without mission. I hope I'm wrong about all this. I hope she can break free and go create her little race of robots. Oh my God, about that, because she said it. When little Day, like when he was Dawn, asked her, what would you do? If you had your freedom, what would you do? And she said that she would create others like her. And this made me think, if the little scientist lady that took Harry to the light is a robot, and I was assuming that she was a robot from the past that also survived, but what if she isn't? What if she's a robot from the future? What if Demerzel somehow does not end up being the little dusty robot trapped in time, but actually manages to get her freedom and creates more like her? And those that she creates like her are the ones that travel back in time and help sometimes. Oh my God, this episode made me dream so much. I loved it so much. I haven't been excited about another episode from a show for a long time. But yeah, I think that's all I have for you today, guys. And catch me here next week because this is so much fun. Yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.